We didn't do Musar, whatever.
We did a little musa with the S. We're gonna
One
leave
second, one second, one second, one second, one second. That's Musar Alain that Naftali Landau noticed that we didn't do Musar. Naftali, very good.
True. It's true. Yeah. Anyways. Okay. So we said that we're trying with the sugi, we're trying to be mechalek between a woman, a girl less than 12 being makabel her own kiddushin, right? So we said that by gerish and the machlokes, then the machlokes Riyach and Rish Lakish over whether by kiddushin, meaning gittin is a machlokes whether she can accept her own get or not. By kedusha, machlokes we're saying the same thing by kedusha, right? So then that's the basic part of the sugya. So then now we're talking about a katana that was makadesh without the das of her father at all, right? She just went and got herself married off. So he said Shmuel and Rav both said that she needs a get and she needs miyur. She needs both. She needs a get because maybe the father will be happy that who she got married to, and he'll be okay with it. That's one. Two is and then you need miyun because if she's going to get divorced, then people are going to think that the husband can't marry the sister of the katana, but he really could because the get was just a chumrah. Right? So that's where we left off. So then Amar Rav Nachman on the last thin line, Amar Rav Nachman who sheshadchu. That's only if there was shidduchim. Meaning this that we said that we have to be chashid that the father's going to be happy with the guy that the girl married. That's only if there was discussions. It's only if there was discussions about this girl that's less than 12 marrying this guy. So then she went and got fed up with the discussions and just decided to marry him. That's fine, right? That's only then are we concerned that the father would admit to it because he was already in the discussions. Otherwise, not. Ula Amar, afilu miyun ein tzricha. Ula says that you don't even need miyun, meaning he's chayluk on Rav and Shmuel, right? Rav and Shmuel said she needs kiddush, she needs a get and miyun, and Ula saying no, she doesn't even need miyun. So Gemara says afagav the shidchu. Ula saying that even if they didn't even if there were no conversations, even if there were conversations of shidduchim between the father and the chassan, still we're not going to require anything. So Gemara says that can't be because if there were discussions, then maybe the father could very well have wanted it. So Gemara says man de masniha lo masniha. No, it's one has nothing to do with the other. Meaning what Rav Nachman said with shadchu and what Ula said are two independent statements. One is not meant to go along with the other one. Okay, Igada Amri, Amar Ula, Ketana Sheniskat Shaloi Ladasavia. Ula said that a Ketana that got herself married off without her father's permission, Afilu Miyan Eina Tzricha. She doesn't need Miyan, right? So this has nothing to do with Rav and Shmuel. See, the first pshat, Ula was going on Rav and Shmuel. Right here, it's just he's stam saying his din, so therefore it had nothing to do with whether shidduchim there was talk or not. Right, so Rav Kahana asked the kasha of Kulan and Mesu. So now again, this is going back to the sugi and Yavamas. Right, so we know in the sugi and Yavamas that there's Chamesh Esrei on Nashim, there's 15 women who are arayas, right? And if you marry one of them, and then they have tsaras, right? They have co-wives. So since you can't do yibum to any of these 15, so then Memela, the co-wife goes free too. But in all of these cases, in Mesu, if any of the wives died, meaning the arayas, oy miyanu, or they did miyun, oy nisgarshu, or they got divorced, oy shinim to islandess, or they were islandess, means they can't have kids. So Memela, the whole marriage was null and void. So then Tsaris and Mutaros. Then the Arayas are allowed to marry the Tsaras. Right? That's your standard Yavamas. Right? Again, if you can have go with the basic case.
What?
Peretz's, yeah, Peretz's family. But I mean, a brother, an uncle marries a niece, right? Then the uncle dies, so now the father has to be miyavim his daughter, right? So obviously he can't sleep with his daughter. So we would think, okay, he has to go and do yibum to the co-wife because there's no relationship between him and the co-wife. Mishnah says you potter, right? But however, if his daughter died or did miyun or got divorced or was an islandess, then the father does go to the co-wife of his daughter, right? So it's saying mutaris, then the taras are mutter. So the Gemara says the kitchaman, who was Makadish her? This katana. If you say that her father married her off, the miyun sagila, is it enough with miyun? If the father married her off, get ma'aliyah, she needs a get. So what exactly is the case of miyun? Elalav, the kutcha nafsha. Must be a girl married herself off the katani to buy miyun, and we said that she needs miyun. So you see, not like Ula. The Mishnah is clearly not like Ula because you see there's a case of miyun. So when it says he asked, and he answered. It's talking about where she was made a Yisaima during her father's life. When her father was alive, she's still like a Yisaima. How? Like we've mentioned a few times, if a girl gets married, let's say when she's 10 years old, the father marries her off, then she gets divorced, or her husband dies, then she's no longer under her father's jurisdiction. And her father does not have control over her. So we're talking about here where that's what happened. And then she went and married herself off. Right? So that's what the Mishnah is talking about. Ula is talking about a stam case where a 12-year-old with a 10-year-old had a father and she went and married herself off. Anyways, the Mishnah Yevama is talking about, no, this is her second marriage. So therefore she's in her own control. Okay, so Mazar Rav Nuna, Ein Meichel L'Kroivim. So we had this, I don't know how many blot ago, by Avodim. So we said that one of the dinim by Avodim is that a guy can sell his daughter for an Amavriya. A guy could sell his daughter as a slave. And then the boss that buys the daughter has a right to marry the slave. Or he has a right to marry her off to his son. So we said that's actually a mitzvah. But you can't sell your Amavriya to somebody who cannot marry your daughter. Right? For example, can a guy sell his daughter to his father? Right? Meaning, his father says, I'm looking for a good slave. So the son says, oh, I'll sell you my daughter. Right? So the problem is you can't do that because there's no potential for marriage because the guy can't marry his granddaughter. Right? So since there's no potential for marriage, he cannot sell his daughter to his father, although the Gemara does say that he could do it for his son. His son could be marrying her, but that's not such a good example, but that's the point. Right? So Gemara says, you're not allowed to sell your daughter to relatives because they're not going to be able to marry her, because she's going to be an erva to them. Rabbi Elazar says you could sell to relatives. Right? Because he says it doesn't have to be part of the deal. That they have to be able to marry her. On Tamid Aleph, now today's daf. But everybody agrees that you're allowed to sell an almana to a kohen gadol. Right? Meaning, if a guy's daughter is an almana, so he could sell her to a kohen gadol. Or the kohen gadol can't marry her, right? Because it's a lav. And grusha b'chalutza l'kohen hedjid, and a grusha nachalutza to a kohen hedjid. Right? Why? Because if they did get married, then they're allowed to stay married. Right? Well, I don't know if they're allowed to stay married, but they're allowed. But the marriage is not. The marriage is considered a marriage. So since theoretically they could be married, so therefore you're allowed to sell her to these guys. So they're going to ask, "Hi, almana heshi dami." Right. So how did she become an almana? If you say that her father married her off, he's not allowed to sell her. Then once he marries her off, he's not allowed to sell her. A man is not allowed to sell his daughter for a slave after he already married her off. Right? Once he's makabel kiddushin for her, then he's no longer allowed to sell her as a slave. That can't be. Elolav the kaddish nafsha. What's the case of an almana? It must be she married herself off, and then her husband died. V'kakari la almana, and we're calling her an almana. So you're calling her an almana. That means we are considering the marriage that she married herself off as a legitimate marriage, and therefore she's being called an almana. That's a kasha on Ula. Again, Ula said that we don't look at the daughter's marriage as anything. So we're talking about Kiddushin of Yiyud, right? Yeah. So Yiyud is again, Yiyud is when the master marries her or the son of the master marries her. Right? We're going according to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda that the original money that gets paid for the Amavriya is not for Kiddushin. Right? So meaning we had a machlokes before that, let's say, when we said again, the father sells the daughter. Now the daughter can get married to the boss or the boss's son. So the shaila is, does the boss have to give money as for Kiddushin money, or is the original money that he paid for the Amavriya enough? So Rabbi Yossi Yehuda holds that the original money is not enough, and you have to give money now. Right? So what are we talking about here? Where once the father gave her over as a slave, that means he doesn't mind if she gets married. So it really is considered with the das of the father. That's why it's not a kasha on Ula. Meaning Ula is talking about a standard marriage. She goes and marries herself off. This case is talking about where the father sold her as a slave. Once he sold her as a slave, and she goes and gets married, that's considered b'das aviyah. So that is not a kasha. That's not a kasha on Ula. Okay, bottom line is we have machlokes Ula and Rav and Shmuel, whether if a girl marries herself off on her own, whether that marriage is a good marriage or not. That's maskonas hasugya. I have no idea what we paskin on this shaila. Fine. Okay. Then the Gemara continues. Similar case. Right? So we said that Rav and Shmuel both hold that if the Ketana marries herself off, that she needs a get and she needs miyun. Okay, now what happens if she becomes a yivama? Right? Itmar meis v'naflu l'fnei echav liyibam. She married herself off. Right? Then the husband died, and now she's got to be false to yibam to her brothers-in-law. Some Ravuna Marav Mima Enes. If the guy did mimer, meaning if one of the brothers tells her, I'm going, right, what do we call a letter of intent? Gives her a letter of intent and he plans on doing yibum to her, then if she's going to want to get divorced, or I don't know if she want to get divorced, we force her to, she has to have three, I mean, it's wild. She has to have three ways of getting out of this. She needs a get, she needs chalitza, and she needs mia. Right? Again,
what does she need a get for? The guy's dead.
We're gonna see in the Gemara.
What do you mean mean? Mean is the letter of intent. That's mine.
That's Maimah.
What's
Gotta know
miyah?
you. There's
Yeah.
Yud. Okay,
miyah?
for all those that are confused, myself, Beroisham, there's Yud, there's Maimer, and there's Miyun. Right. I don't know.
Find them all again?
It's like okay, Maimer
Is the intent.
is not something from Chaim Berlin, right? I mean, that's that too. But I'm
It's a
saying
letter of
Maimer, maybe that's a way to remember it. Right? Maimer is a letter of intent for a Yavam to marry a Yavam.
Okay.
That's Maimer. Yiyud is when a girl gets sold as a slave. If the boss wants to marry her, that's called Yiyud.
Is it a letter of intent to marry her?
No, he marries her. That's called Yiyud because he's marrying her as a slave. I mean, she's a slave first, then she's marrying her. What was the other one? Miyun is when she walks out. Miyun is a derabbanadic way of getting out of a marriage.
What do you do?
Like when a girl loses her father and then her mother or brothers marry her off, she could just pick herself up and walk out.
No, just
No and nothing necessary.
say goodbye.
Miyun, correct. Say goodbye.
So why does she need mirror in this?
Oh, so like we were saying, Rav and Shmuel hold that if a girl marries herself off, right? We said if a girl marries herself off on her own, you need a get and you need miyun. Right? Get.
I don't understand. What's me and over a get?
No, okay, it is. You need to do two forms of walking out. You have to do two forms of divorce.
When you give the get, you're walking out.
No, but you still need miyun because in case
What does mean? He said it's walking out.
miyun means right. She needs to officially walk out.
When you give the get, she's walking out.
No, who says?
Well, she's not living there anymore.
How do you know? Again, we're not. He has to give a get. It's not. She can't stay married to the guy.
Right.
He needs a get, and you also need miyun.
Sviako, we're gonna put together
I don't know
a
what
vote
action
whether
means.
whether Naftali's allowed to go to live share or not, because I have no control over him. This is not good.
Okay, I'll be
Well,
quiet.
No,
Hey,
one
what's up?
thing. One rule is as follows. If somebody in the shir is not understanding something, then we could explain it 100 times. Whatever. Right? If he has a kasha, that's already something else. That's enough kamina, right? That's enough kamina. So, and it's good. It's good when he asks because then it forces me to understand it. Right?
Wouldn't
Yeah.
the mimer in this case be considered a good kiddushin if the original kiddushin was nothing?
Well, we're going to get to that. The Gemara is going to explain itself. The Gemara is going to explain itself in a second. All right? But again, miyun, the reason why, let's chazer over, why does Rav and Shmuel both hold that you need a get and miyun? A get because maybe the father was happy with the marriage. So maybe she's taka married, which Akiva asked yesterday, what's the lumdus, how does that work? It's a whole complicated thing how that works, because she can't marry herself off. She doesn't have the mechanics to do that. Okay. And then you need miyun because if people are going to see that this girl got divorced, so then this guy is not going to be able to marry this girl's sisters, which he really can because there was never any marriage there. Right? Because the girl married herself off. So there was really no marriage there. So really, yes. But so therefore we do a miyun so people will see that there's something episnished about this divorce. And then they're going to know that there was something up and therefore he can marry the sister.
What's it mean? Besides
Just walking out. That's all it is. It's walking out. Maybe you should do the miyun first, you want to say, before the get. Maybe. Sure. Okay, maybe. I hear what you're saying.
Jacob, the mian is for the mimer now, though. It's not for the original, the first Kiddushin, right?
So now let's take it up to the next step. Now we're talking about this girl married herself off, right? So we said, according to Rav Shmuel, she needs a get and she needs miyun. What's saying? She needs a get and then she needs miyun. Right? Now her husband dies, and one of the brothers-in-law does mimer. Okay? So now the question is, was she married to the first husband? Maybe not. If she wasn't married to the first husband, then nothing's going on with the second husband, right? If she was married to the first husband, then there is something going on to the second husband, right? So because of that, we have a whole challenge of things that have to be done. What are you saying, Rabbi?
She marries she marries somebody, but she doesn't have the yad to be marriage. What do we say? That's a bias nus? But don't we always say that people don't do a bias nus?
I know it's in bias, yeah.
She doesn't want to do bias nus. She wants to marry the guy. She bought a wedding dress. The guy rented a tuxedo, and they got married.
Oh, so very good. So that's a good question. I think right now we're just talking about Kiddushin, so there's no bia. The Gemara, either tomorrow's daf or Amid Beis, I don't even remember, it all gels together, is going to be talking about Nisuin. No, there's Amid Beis. Amid Beis is going to be talking about Nisuin too. This is just Kiddushin, so really there's no bia here. Otherwise, I think you have a good kasha, right? There's no, I mean, officially, unless it's in Yehuda, of course, we have always.
I didn't want to say that.
I know. I wanted to beat you to it. I wanted to steal your thunder.
Right. But see, every Kiddushin you could have the same question about, because she could always do me and nothing ever happened. I don't think we look at it as BS nos we allow her to get married. Every katana, if she could do me and the whole rabbinic Kiddushin goes away, and you never were married to her. So we still don't look at all those BS as BS nos, do we?
I don't know. I don't know how it works when we say.
I'm just saying you could always have that question on every single Kedusha katana.
Yeah,
it is not done to the father.
Asking, yeah,
it's not really applicable. I mean, ain't other way to be lost chazaka, the psychology of the person. Here he did it, so whatever it is, it is. Ain't other way to be lost means that there's two options. We could say the marriage was a good marriage, and we could say it wasn't a good marriage, and something else will happen. So then we say, ain't other way to be lost. He wanted it to be a good marriage, so it must be a good marriage. Here, there's no two options. There's no either he wants this or he wants that. He did it. It could be bilasinus, but ain't other way.
She did it. We're not talking about the husband in this case.
The husband didn't marry her. But the
See,
Eina, the
see?
Mesa Vilasinos is going on him. It is going on the husband. It's Chazaka on the husband.
It's not a kazak on a woman.
No.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
The options were
But
always with the
I'm
husband.
confused enough when we bring the Yibum into this, so I'm just going to go
Okay.
on by and try.
Fine.
Right. So anyway, so we got the Yibum. Now throw that into the mix. So now we got three things going on here. So again, Itmar Mace v'naflu fnei Echav the Yibum. She fell in front of his brothers. I'm sorry, for Yibum. Right. So if Maimer was done by one of her brothers-in-law to marry her, then she's going to need Miyun. But if it was just a Zika, I don't want to bring up any bad memories about Zika. Zika means that nobody actually did Maimer. Zika means that's the automatic connection between all the brothers-in-law and the woman. Right? So if it was just Zika, meaning nothing was done, then she doesn't need Miyun. Okay, what's going on here? Ketzad. So also by Maimer, if one of the brothers did Maimer to her, so tzricha get, tzricha chalitza, but tzricha Miyun. Right? I hope she gets this done in one day in the Bezdin, You get all three instead of having to come back 3 different days or whatever. So get, chalitza, and miyun. Why? Tricha get, shemen esratza abigidushe sheni. Maybe she needs a get because maybe the father only wanted her to marry the second guy, meaning the brother-in-law, but the father didn't want her to marry the original guy. Right? So the first marriage, which got her into this whole mess, meaning what we thought she was a Yavama and Almana, she was not, because the father never agreed. So she was now married to the first guy. But the second guy went and did Maimer to her. Okay, so now we have to be chashiv. That's a marriage. So she needs a get from the second guy. Tzricha chalitza, but she also needs chalitza. Shemen esratza b'kedushay rishon. Maybe the father liked the first husband who died, and he doesn't care for the second husband who did Maimer, so therefore she needs chalitza. And tzricha miyun, and she needs miyun to walk out. Maybe the father didn't want either one of these two guys. But when people are going to say, "In kiddushin toisin ba'achaisa," and people are going to say that kiddushin, right, is not typhus by for this lady's sister. Meaning, if this guy goes and marries her sister, they're going to say it doesn't work. So what's Mian going to do? Mian tells everybody that it was just we're just making sure she walks out on him because on the possibility that there was a marriage, but the whole thing is a supping marriage, so therefore you need all three. That's if Maimer was done. Lo yosef Maimer, but if none of the brothers did Maimer, they didn't do anything. It was just Zika. She only needs chalitza. Right? My Amr, because you're going to say Tiboy Nami Mion, maybe she should need Mion, Shema Yomru, and Kiddushin Tazim Achayza. Why don't we say the same thing? Right? She's getting Chalitza. So why don't you say, but the whole Chalitza is a Savik Chalitza. So people are going to say, oh, this guy can't marry her sisters anymore because he did Chalitza with her. So he says, Akol Yoidim Achayz Chalutza Derabanan. Everybody knows this din, right? Which I hope is not true because I don't think I knew this then. But Gemara is saying Akol Yoitin, Achos Chalutza is a darabanon. To marry the sister of your Chalutza is a darabanon. So since everybody knows it's a darabanon, we don't need to do a miyun in order to make sure that people know that this guy can marry her sister. To marry a guy to marry.
I'm sorry, what does that mean? What does that mean? He could marry her sister or he can't?
He could marry, no, he cannot, but it's a derabbanan.
It's an issa derabbanan to marry.
It's a derabbanan to marry a chalitzas. But the thing is like this. But the thing is, it's an issa derabbanan, but we don't have to be concerned that people are going to say, oh, this guy is marrying his chalutza's sister, which is a derabbanan. Because since it's an Issa D'Rabbanan, we don't have to be concerned that if people are going to people are not going to go crazy. Oh, the guy's over in Issa D'Rabbanan. Right? But Achos Chalutza is Midivrei Soifrim. The sister of a Chalutza, that's a D'Rabbanan. Right? Okay. Fine. That's the hard part of the daf. The rest of the part of the daf is much easier. Okay, Hanu Beitrei to have a kashasu chamra to say tzipi b'vavel. Oh, and Yonah Diyayim Mamish. Two people are sitting under drinking wine under tzipi b'vavel. So what is that? A rubbish tree. Right, a tzaftifa, that's it's a type of arab. Right? Garada, I think we said that it's a puzzle arab, right? Tzaftifa, we say it's puzzle, we say it's kosher. Is that like a weeping willow?
I think so,
Not the
yes.
sharp, the tzaftifa is like the sharp
weeping
edges,
willow.
right? Yeah, so then it's no good. Okay, but it's called it's a min arab. Okay. Right?
Didn't Shasha have one?
Yeah. So again, if they're sitting under the weeping willow tree, drinking wine. Shokol chad minayo, and I guess they drank a little too much wine. So right, shokol chad minayo, kasa the chad. One guy took a cup of wine and Yoav le lechavre and gave it to his friend. And Omar mikacheli bartech lebri is the perfect way to do shidduchim. Two guys sitting under a tree drinking, and one guy gives the other one a cup of wine and says, "Okay, we're taking care of shidduch crisis. Just let your son marry my daughter," and finished. So Amar Ravina, meaning so none of the kids were involved here. Almost Hasidish way, almost. Right, so Amar Ravina, even according to the Manda Amar, which is Rab and Shmuel, who hold that we have to be choshed, that the father was happy with the girl's marriage. Now, we're not, but to say that maybe the son is going to be happy with his father marrying him off to some girl, that we're not choshed. We're not choshed for that. Right? So, okay. So, Amri le Rabbana le Ravina, v'dilma shliach shavi. How do you know? Maybe the son made his father a shliach to marry him off. Right? How do you know that? How do you know that that didn't happen? So, what I answer is an interesting answer. A person not going to have chutzpah to make his father his shliach. Right? Well, I mean, a guy's going to make his father a shliach to go marry him off. So it's interesting because he wouldn't have the chutzpah. But is it also? We said when we learned the Kibbut Avim sugya last week that it could be it's also to ask your parents for a favor. Right? I don't remember what context the Gemara came up with in the Gemara, but I thought we said that you're not allowed to ask a parent for a favor. Here it sounds like
would this be considered a favor? He's making him a shliach mitzvah. Just wouldn't have the chutzpah to make him a shliach.
Or maybe you could say differently. Maybe you could say
I wanted to say that the father would want the kid married.
Or he has a chiyuv
to marry him off. The girl or the boy?
What?
Chiyuv to marry off.
We said a father has to marry off his son, no?
His son or the daughter?
This guy already has 3 wives, the son.
You're saying then it doesn't work then. Also, is chutzpah mean asa lahalacha?
No.
No,
it sounds like the svara we had about
also.
the gittin, and in gittin we had by the cipher. And he said 2 shluchim by the cipher, and he said 3 people, so the 2 people can't become the shluchim because a person wouldn't have the chutzpah to say in front of the cipher, who's the big one, to make someone else the shliach. We had such a svara. It's not usher, it's just the person wouldn't do it.
And if it was
Right.
Usher, wouldn't they write Usher?
Why don't we just ask the son if he made him a shliach?
Why don't we just ask him? That would be
I
way
don't
too simple an
Dilma.
That would be way too simple. That would be way too simple an answer.
No, I'm just saying. No. But before, when we were talking about the daughter, that was going to be Lamafreya. The father maybe he didn't, and it's Lamafreya. Here, it's a question of if he did or didn't. If he didn't, then it's not negay. Now you want to talk about Zachan Lajish in front of? That's a separate question. But in the first question of the Gemara is asking maybe he did, maybe he didn't. So go ask him. What's the Gemara's original question?
It could be that is the halacha, but it's going to take 2 days to get to him. In those 2 days, is she an Eshes Ish or not?
You can wait.
What does that mean?
It takes months to sometimes figure out Iguna Shilas. I'm just saying, that's not a question of the Gemara.
Why not?
You could be a Suffolk Eshes Ish for a long time if Bezin has to work through a complicated question. What does that mean?
if we know now what the halacha is, then it
This is
makes
a
a difference.
Matthias question. That's what I'm saying. If it's a Matthias question, just ask him.
We can during the time though. Until then, is it a suffix or not?
Of course, it's a
Is it even a
suffix.
suffix? The Gemara
If he
says it's not
did,
a
it's a
suffix.
suffix.
The
I
person
don't
wouldn't do
understand
that.
you.
The Gemara says it's not a suffix.
Okay, and let's say we find out he did. So the guy is an ish dish, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. Okay, that's already. I'm ringing the bell on this one. I don't know. I hear the kasha. Like, why didn't the Gemara just say? But I think you have that kasha on every Gemara, no, Akiva?
No, I told you there's a clear difference between the Gemara before about the daughter and this. It's not the same Gemara at all. No.
It's true. No, but the Gemara before and this is true. I'm asking. But I'm saying, like, maybe he made him into a shliach. Maybe he didn't, right?
Or it's talking about an actual case. It's not. It's talking about a case that actually happened.
What, here?
Yeah.
Right. Enochanami. Okay. Anyway, so a person doesn't have the chutzpah to make his father into a shliach, which means bringing it to Inyana de Yaima. I don't want to harp on this point too much. Can a kid ask his father to buy him a lulav and esrog? Oh, chutzpah to Aaron, you bought your kid a lulav and esrog, no? So a chutzpah. What do you mean? A kid has a chutzpah to make his father.
Can you imagine if that was the only chutzpah the kids had today, Tiago would take it.
That's a good point.
I don't know. I just bought one, and my kids are on their own.
Yeah, they're going to get one in City Field. It's going to be red and orange. Yeah. Yeah, we come over with a baseball and say, hey, was any nicks on this one? Anyways, so fine. So okay, a person doesn't have the chutzpah to make his father into a shliach. Okay, but Dilma Artsuye Artze Kameh. Maybe he had ritzei from the word ritzei. Maybe the son told the father, I have a little bit of crush on this girl. So then the father is going drinking with his friends, and he says, I'll bring my son home a present. I'm gonna give this girl's father a cup of wine. I'm gonna come home and say, here you go, son, you're married to her. Right? That's our father. Right? So it says, Amalei Rava bar Simi. It seems like these kashas work. So Amalei Rava bar Simi, Beferish Amar Mar, the Lesolo the Rav Shmuel. Ravina, he said over this.
Why was it pashut that it would work?
That's a different kasha. L'chayra, back then they would not get so inebriated from a cup of wine. Also, doesn't say he drank it.
That's the point.
That's
You're
another.
bring a bottle that you're not willing to drink.
That's a different kasha. It's a different kasha, right? Anyways, so he's saying this. No, Bechlal doesn't hold of Rav and Shmuel's din. He must hold like Ula, right? So we're never chayshit for people or for what their das was. So that's why. He said it's not a marriage. Fine. Next case. The Kaddish Bekisha Diyarka. Here's a cheap guy, right? This guy went and he married this poor girl. This is mamash like your case in the, like in the pizza shop or whatever. The guy in front of it goes over to the girl and says, will you marry me? Right? So the guy did it with vegetables. Kisha Diyarka Beshuka, a bundle of vegetables in the shuk. He went over to the girl, said, marry me. Even according to Rabban Shmuel. Who said what the father wants it? Covered. That's only if the guy does it properly. He gets down on a knee and he takes out a ring and he gives it to this 10-year-old girl. And yeah, okay. Then what the father says, oh, such a fine guy, right? He decided to he's treating my daughter so nice. I'm happy he married her, right? But if the guy comes and gives his daughter a thing of celery and says, here, will you marry me in the street? That's not. But Derek Bizayan, no father is going to tolerate a son-in-law proposing to his daughter, right, with the thing of celery, right?
The shot is that the father won't accept it.
The father's not going to be nisrat. There's no shaila that the father. There's no concern. The whole concern is that the father's going to be happy with the son-in-law. They're saying no way. He's giving vegetables to his daughter. No way. Right?
What if he went to Gourmet Glad and bought the checked vegetables?
Now you're talking.
The blueberries. You bought the check.
The blueberries.
Nobody can afford that.
One Ferris.
As I'm saying, the fact that he bought it means Taka has a few dollars.
Taka, we can't bash David Spira when he's not on. So the blueberries from Seasons or whatever. And a Hanami, you're right. You're right, Taka. Maybe that would be different. Yeah, so what's the bezayin here? Because two things went on. He gave her vegetables and he did it in the street. He bezayin the yarka, he bezayin the shuka. Was it the bezayin that it was vegetables, or was it bezayin because he did it in the street? Nafkamina, the kaddish b'kaspa b'shuka. The nafkamina is if he gives her a ring in the street. Or he brings her vegetables in her house. Right?
Is the pshat in the street the same as eating in the shuk?
No washing. We said washing.
What?
We said it's washing.
We said Yeshan. Rabbeinu Tam held Rabbeinu Tam.
Yeah,
That was
okay.
Rabbeinu Tam's shita. It's a good.
Is that-
You remember that, Naftali? Very good. Is it because of l'chayra? It's an unclassy thing to do. That's what I would believe.
Is it because the same as like eating in the shuk?
I
See,
think,
Yaakov, you can't
know.
see a guy giving a woman a ring in Yankee Stadium in front of 50,000 people in
I
the
was thinking
jumbotron.
about-
No, so that's
I
not
was-
so.
that's romance at its best.
Well, if I
That's
care,
right.
that might be
That's
today.
right.
That would be considered derech kavod, maybe.
That's right.
Yeah. Why isn't there a third option in the Gemara? Why is it an either or? Either the vegetables or the shuk, or maybe it's both. Maybe the bazayan is that he went so far and did both at the same time.
Good question. I hear. Maybe it's only two, but if it would only be one, he would be okay with it.
Yeah.
He gave her a $600 esrig in Machne Yehuda.
That's not a bunch of vegetables.
I don't know.
Well, maybe to her it is. To her,
I
it's
hear you.
different.
I like his kasha. Gershon has a good kasha. Who says it has to be exclusive, one or the other? Maybe it's a combination of the two. That's the issue. Right? Okay, very good. Right. So he says, Amarle, which really answers your question, meaning either one of them, right, is bad. So it don't make a difference. So therefore we're saying no good. Fine. Now who Damar Krivai? This is a classic right here. We had this a couple times. Who Damar Krivai? He told he marrying off his daughter to one of his relatives. He Amr Kriva, and she said she's marrying the daughter off to her relatives. So we got your classic. He wants one thing and she wants another thing. Happens at Mola marriage, yeah. Right? And what's the problem, guys? I'm saying they have a daughter. He's got a brother. He says, let my brother marry my daughter. And she's got a brother, and she says, I want my brother to marry my daughter, right? They both think their daughter's the cat's whiskers, right? So each one of them wants to marry their side off to their daughter, right? So they're fighting it out. So what happens? As usual, Kaf say, Adam Allah, Tavi Lekreva. So she forced him. He gave in, right? She forced him to give in, and he said, okay, we're marrying her off to your relatives. When everybody was eating and drinking, his relative came in there into the attic. So I guess he snuck her up to the attic in the middle of her wedding party. But I guess this is by the shmor. This must be by the shmor, right? Before anything went down. And he went and he grabbed her up to the attic and he married her. His relative. Right?
In front of two Edom?
Yeah, I think.
What's the topic on the
Interesting.
Kiddushin?
The Rashi says Beseser.
It was, yeah. And Rashi does say that's Mustamad B'Shadas because it was in the attic. Because it was Begiloi, they probably would have killed him.
Right, so I'm saying it's in front of two Edom. So what's the shot on the
It
Kiddushin?
had to be a legitimate marriage.
So what's the shot on the Kiddushin?
Because she's a katana. I think she's a katana.
And it's without the father's consent?
Correct. Well, that's
here
the
it's with the
shaila.
father's consent.
He goofa. That's the Gemara shaila. The father really wanted it was his relative that did this. So the father really wanted his relative.
But his wife beat him up.
His wife beat him up. So therefore, or she tied him up, whatever, one of the two.
Yeah.
Right. And Mamela, he had to give in. So now the shaila is good. So he gave in. But now that his relative jumped the gun, so maybe he's takanicha to that. Right?
See, Yaakov, I mean, my wife told me this years ago. The first girl from her high school class that was getting engaged, right? This is like we got married in 1970. This was like 1968. So the families met in one of the houses, and it was bloodshed. One of the aunts from one side saw an aunt from the other side. She said she was a capo in the lager. She went totally out of her mind.
Oh, I remember you told me this.
Didn't get engaged and got nothing. That was it. Yeah.
That's a crazy story. That's pretty crazy. Yeah. Okay.
This
So
case where it's similar to the case over here.
yeah. So right, but this guy jumped the gun.
The question is, what's the two tzadim here?
He agreed to marry his daughter off.
His wife beat
His
him up.
wife's family. Then
Right.
his relative came and jumped the gun.
Right.
So the question is, okay, he might say to himself, "Oh, my relative, I'm very happy with him.
So
I'm very
good, so
happy
I'm not-
with him.
I'm not gonna-
He won me the war."
Right. So he's not. So he's gonna be agreed to the kedushin. So the shaila is, would he agree to kedushin? Is that the shaila? What's the
Correct.
shaila?
Yes, is he agreeing to the Kiddushin?
Or he won't agree to the kedushin because his wife wants to be married to her side?
Correct. He already was maskim. He was already maskim.
What do we consider the bia then? Is it ma'anis?
No. Well, it depends. It depends. Well, we're trying to figure out, are they married or not married? Who they married? I mean, well,
I said the tzad that they're not married. So what? Then the guy was ma'anis, or
we're talking about Kiddushin here. We're not talking about Nisuin. We're talking about only Kiddushin, first stage. So there's no bias going on. The same. That's what we already established. The next Gemara after this is Kiddushin, is Nisuin. Okay, so let's see. So again, Amar Abaye, Ksiv she'eris Yisrael lo yaso avla v'lo yidabru chazav. Klal Yisrael is not going to do something bad, and they're not going to say lies. So Mamela, we have to assume that the father was not going to agree to this because he already gave in to his wife. Right? He gave in to his wife, and now that his family came and jumped the gun, we're going to say no. He's not going to be okay with this.
So you need a pasuk to say that a husband fully agrees to his wife.
100%. That he's not going to backtrack.
They'll come back or come back.
No, they could come. Rava Amar Chazaka ein adam terech besuda umafsida. It's a chazaka that a person doesn't work with a suda and lose it, right? Yeah. Now, which okay, what exactly is going on over here?
I understood it as the vart. He paid for the vart.
I understand. So he paid for the vart. So he has to make another vart?
No, he's a chazak. A person's not going to be paid for the vart. He's not going to pay for a vart for his wife's side, and then agree to make another vart for his side.
I'm saying so. It's a new wedding. I don't understand that. Okay, whatever.
Not a wedding. No, it's not a wedding.
Whatever it is, whatever the party is.
It's a vart. It's not a wedding.
It's a what do you mean? It's a kiddushin.
What it's a kiddushin.
It's a kiddushin.
There's a tnoim there.
More than
That's
a
what I
tnoim.
mean. Doesn't it mean that not like what I was saying? You don't need a pasuk really. The fact that he made a suda means he was fully backing his wife.
Yeah.
Since he was fully backing his wife, this.
Yeah, but what's the hefsid? Good. So he's backing his wife.
Option.
What's the hefsid? It's only a hefsid if he has to make a new suda for the new marriage. Right? Otherwise, what's the hefsid?
What the hefsid would be the whole originally, if he didn't want this zivug, he wouldn't have spent the money on this suda. Since he spent the money on this suda, we know that he was backing his wife.
Maybe. Okay, either way. Might be now. What's the difference between the Turutz and Hikibinau, the Loy Torah? If he wasn't Matria for the Suda, right? He hired a caterer. If he hired a caterer, then it's no big tircha.
That would be the same thing. If he didn't pay for it, someone sponsored the event.
Yeah. Okay.
He stiffed Gershon. He just didn't pay Gershon.
That's right. Okay, now we get into a few different cases. In the Skacha Ladasavia, let's say she got Kiddushin, right? That's the first stage of marriage. Her father was maskim, very nice, happily ever after. but she didn't get the second stage. She never did the suin. Her father traveled overseas. She wanted to get married already, meaning the second stage, the real marriage. But she again got married, the second stage of the marriage, right, the suin, to her husband. So now what? She's allowed to eat truma, meaning if the new husband was a kohen, so she's allowed to eat the truma, because we can assume. Remember, whenever we said that there's a takana that they can't, even though Mikra didn't after Kiddushin, she could eat. After Kiddushin, she could eat truma, but we said it's a takana that she can't because we're afraid she's going to bring some home and her brothers are going to eat it, right? So she's allowed to eat the truma until her father comes and makes a macha and says, "I didn't want this. I didn't want the marriage." She cannot eat it. Maybe the father's going to come make a macha. If it comes out that she's not married to this guy because the father says, no, I only wanted you to be engaged, I didn't want you to be married, then it comes out that she was eating truma and she wasn't allowed to because she was a Yisraelis. There was a story like this, and Rav paskin like Rav Asi that she's not allowed to eat the truma. Fine. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak u'moide Rav shemeisa eina yarsha. Rav is moide though, even though that Rav holds. What do we say Rav held?
Opposite of Shmuel.
No, but why should it be? No. Moide Rav she'im meisa eina yarsha. He's moide that he does not yarshin her. Right, meaning the Yerusha only happens when they get married, not when they when they have Nisuin, not when they have Kiddushin. Right? So Mela, she's not considered fully married. Right? So for Truma, Rav holds that. Well, that's what I'm getting confused. Rav disagreed. It's interesting, went over my head. I just copped it now. Rav held that she's allowed to eat Truma. Ravasi held that she's not allowed to eat truma, and Rav paskin like Ravasi. Rav paskin like Ravasi, who he disagreed with. Good, but Lamaisa Rav himself held that she's not that she's allowed to eat the truma. Okay, so then why doesn't the husband yarshin her if she dies? Right, so it ain't a yarsha, because why? The money goes in the chazak of the master, right? Meaning whoever has it, we don't know. It's money that's a suffix. The money belongs to her, right? Now her husband died. Shiloh's does the husband? I'm sorry. Now she died. Does the husband get the money? So we say no. We don't know. It's a suffix whether he's really the husband because maybe the father didn't want. So money always stays where it is until proven otherwise. But other than that, where she could eat truma. So
even though Cheskes Maria is a whole nother shtel because it was into nobody's rishos. So
right, yeah, good, yeah.
Yerusha, it's not so simple. The whole idea of Yerusha is nobody's rishos at that point. So Mechtesi Uki, you say that chazaka.
100% masking. Yeah, we'll wait for the bubbers for this. Yeah. Anyway, so good. So Niskacha Ladas. Okay, so that's one case. Now another case. Niskacha Ladas. He married her with her father's das, Vinissa Shaloi Ladas, and she got married to him. She had Kiddushin with the father's agreement. She did the Nisuin without the father's agreement, and the father's here. Meaning the first case, the father was overseas. Here, the father is here right now. So Ravuna Amar Einai Chelas. She cannot eat truma. Rav Yirmi Rav Amar Chelas. She could eat truma. Ravuna Amar Einai Chelas. Vafilu Rav Amar Chelas. Even according to Rav, who says she's allowed to eat it when the father's overseas. Hasam who Delay Isilav. The father wasn't here. So we can say that why should we assume that he doesn't want the marriage? The father's here. Why is he quiet? He's angry. He's very angry. So he kept quiet. So therefore we can assume that he's not happy with it and they can't eat it. That's the next sheet. Even according to Ravasi, he says you can't eat it. That's because maybe the father's going to come from overseas and make a macha. Like Naftali's saying, when she's quiet, it's nuchiyas nachle. He's quiet, I'm sorry. It must be he's happy with it. So that's that. Last case, Niskacha Shaloi Ladas. She got married without the das of her father. The Nisis Shaloi Ladas. And she got married Shaloi Ladas. So nothing was Ladas Aviyah. right? Which is the case we've been talking about. But Via Khan and her father's here. So Rav Huna Amar Echelas, Rav Huna says she could eat the truma, meaning she did nothing with the das of her father, not the engagement, not the marriage, nothing. Rav Huna says she's allowed to eat it. Rav Yirmiyah says she can't eat it. So what's going on here? Right? So Amar Ula, another interesting lashon. Rav Huna's din is like vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes. He's saying it doesn't make sense. Hashto mahasam the kedusha deraisa. Over there where kedushin is deraisa, meaning in the case where the father married her off with his das. So midaraisa, she's married to him. Amra loyachla. Rav Huna said that she's not allowed to eat truma. Hacha loy kosher. Here where nothing was there, it could be there was no marriage here at all. Yet Rav Huna says she could eat the truma. Nirin divrei Talmud. So on to the Samad Aleph. No, it seems like Rav Huna, Rav Yirmiyah is slugging up his Rebbe because the Taka doesn't make any sense. What Rav Huna said. Samarava, my time, the Rav Huna, why Rav Huna say it? Since she did a Maisa and the father didn't make a macha at all. So since the father didn't make a macha, it's as if he just totally disowned his daughter, and it's as if she's a total independent, and she doesn't care what her father said, and meaning the father clearly doesn't care. So Mamela, she married herself off, and therefore she is, she's her own girl, and therefore, Rav Huna's chayshid that it's a good marriage, and that's the pshat.
It's interesting that Ula is getting involved here. He's the one who says that Niskadsha, she can't eat truma because Shema Tishkelach